Charlie Kirk was sitting in a chair like any other, holding a microphone under a tent in front of a crowd like he's done I don't know how many times before. His shirt says freedom, and the slogan above his head, prove me wrong. He's answering a question about mass shooters.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
His response, as it often was, is to ask a question of his own.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
He lowers the microphone, exposing his neck for the briefest of moments. This right here is where the bullet enters. He slumps over, falls off the chair, and the world would later learn he's dead.
Conservative political activist Charlie Kirk has been shot.
Kirk was actually shot in the neck.
President Donald Trump is announcing on Truth Social, the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead.
In any deadly shooting, the question that often gets answered last is the why question. Why take a life? Why take this life?
Now, I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. We are and will continue to work nonstop until we find the person that has committed this heinous crime and find out why they did it.
Charlie Kirk was many things to many people. A fearless free speech hero, a political weapon, an agent of change, or maybe just divisive and dangerous. I'll try to show you all of these things as a way of answering the question, why kill Charlie Kirk? The persona Charlie Kirk has spent virtually his entire adult life cultivating is the one who defends conservative values, lionizes Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, and takes on all comers with a smile.
Hello, everyone. I am Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA, and I am surrounded by 20 woke college kids.
This episode of Surrounded by Jubilee Media is a good example of how eager people are to debate, or if not, certainly watch how Charlie Kirk operates when pressed.
Do you think men can give birth?
Do I think men can give birth? I think that...
Yes or no question. You tell me, what is a woman?
I think a woman is somebody who identifies as a woman.
Got it. So that's not a definition. That's like saying a table is someone that identifies as a table. Do you think Kamala Harris was chosen because of her intelligence?
Her qualifications and her intelligence.
Really? Wow.
A lot of conservatives kind of grab onto this idea of transgression. And I think for him, that was part of it. He was saying, you know, the liberals don't want to talk about things. There are things they won't let us talk about. And here,
there's no question. The thing that has drawn so much attention to Charlie Kirk over the years are these kinds of combustible conversations where over time, it's almost like he and his opponents have taken more and more extreme positions against each other.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live. Would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
Oh, okay, great. So that's insane.
But let me tell you why. No, hold on. Let me ask you a question. There's 2 ultrasounds I have. One is a baby conceived in one is a baby conceived by a loving couple. Which one is which?
You don't know.
Exactly, because it's all human rights and it's all human beings.
But that doesn't matter.
And for Charlie Kirk, there's never really been any limit to how far and wide he can take this show on the road. He died doing the thing he was known for, this kind of change my mind, no holds barred, bare knuckle, town square brawl, especially on college and university campuses.
There's no such thing as an unwanted child. Number 3, it is never right to justify the mass elimination or termination of people under the guise of saying they're unwanted. That's how we get Auschwitz. That's how we get the greatest horrors of the 20th century. Those people are unwanted.
So you're comparing abortion to the Holocaust?
Absolutely, I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
It's really not.
It's 45 million babies.
And let's talk about range. In terms of topics, Charlie Kirk's brand of conservatism extends enormously far, going from abortion to gun control to transgender rights, civil rights, religion, education, Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, the list goes on.
He became someone who commented on everything and, you know, was expected to have a take on anything and would happily weigh in on anything.
I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
So Muhammad, the greatest man ever to live, the greatest example, was a warlord
who married a 6-year-old, raped her when she was 9, and then kept multiple wives.
And when you declare war on Israel, expect a firestorm in reaction. Let me finish, I let you talk.
And these sorts of aggressive positions have created two kinds of polar reactions. The first is from Charlie Kirk's critics, at least one of whom was fired from MSNBC for appearing to suggest that Kirk is himself to blame for his own death.
And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
But there's also the large tent of supporters who watched him become one of the most ardent and long-standing defenders of Donald Trump.
I don't know if you guys know this, but you here are at a crime scene. You know this? This is where they counted the ballots in 2020.
And this created a place for him amongst the highest echelons of executive power, and not just as a talker, but as a change maker, someone with the agency to quite possibly change the course of the entire country.
Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror.
Join me in welcoming the next Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
For someone who has never held office, never held any formal staff position in the White House, Charlie Kirk sure seemed like he did.
3.5 million illegals at the southern border. We can fix that and do the largest deportation effort in the history of the country. Sending money to Ukraine? We don't have to do that anymore.
When Charlie Kirk was just 18 years old, he founded Turning Point USA, which is now the foremost conservative youth organization in the country. Hundreds of chapters nationwide. And these regular summits have played a big part in helping Republicans appeal to younger voters. At age 23, Charlie Kirk was the youngest speaker at the 2016 Republican National Convention, the same election year Trump would secure his first term. Around this time, he began building a friendship with Trump's son, Don Jr. And before he'd even turned 30, he was a member of Team J.D. Vance when he was running to be a senator.
And then at some point, you just realized he was ubiquitous. And he was not just a guy appearing on campus and in viral videos, but Turning Points was everywhere, and they had real momentum. And he was speaking at CPAC, and he was hanging out with J.D. Vance, and he was speaking with Trump, and he was in the mix on all of these things.
At age 31, the night before Trump was sworn in for his second term, Charlie Kirk was hosting a black tie gala. 1,500 people paying up to $15,000 a head. Turning Point was turning tens of millions of dollars in revenue a year. Around the time Trump was talking about annexing Canada, Charlie Kirk was offering unsolicited advice to the country's prime minister. When Trump's pet project was buying Greenland, Charlie Kirk was with Don Jr., working to charm the locals. And read how much the Trump administration owes to Charlie Kirk, direct from Vice President J.D. Vance. So much of the success we've had in this administration traces directly to Charlie's ability to organize and convene. He didn't just help us win in 2024, he helped us staff the entire government.
It's also an administration that values sort of media and communication above anything else. And so because he was somebody who had a large megaphone and because he was focused on that kind of communications thing, I think Trump gravitated towards that and liked that. And he saw Kirk as somebody, I think accurately, who had a finger on what a lot of MAGA voters wanted.
I won the young people by 37%. No Republicans ever won, and I won by 37%. And Charlie Kirk will tell you TikTok helped, but Charlie Kirk helped also.
If it's true that Donald Trump feels he owes some of his own success to Charlie Kirk, it's also true that he sees an attack on Charlie Kirk as an attack on him.
From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others. Radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives.
Trump is right about one thing and wrong about one thing. He's right to suggest that political violence has become more and more commonplace.
What scholars of political violence say is these things are self-perpetuating. Once you kind of open up that possibility and people start to see it as legitimate, they will feed on itself. You get copycats, you get retribution, and you have a growing portion of the population saying that political violence is acceptable in at least some situations.
We're living in a very politically violent era, and it's coming, we can debate where it's coming from, but no one has a monopoly. No side has a monopoly on it.
Yes, and this begins to hint at what Trump gets wrong in suggesting that what he calls the radical left is somehow exclusively the problem. In 2020, the FBI arrested several people in connection with a plot to kidnap and possibly assassinate the Democratic governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. In 2021, pro-Trump supporters ransacked Congress, hoping to prevent the transfer of presidential power to Joe Biden. In 2022, an attacker beat the husband of then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi with a hammer in a home invasion where he hoped to take Pelosi herself hostage. In 2023, a man pleaded guilty for threatening to kill Democratic Senator John Tester after police found in his home nearly 20 firearms and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition. In 2024, Democratic lawmakers from Connecticut faced a series of bomb threats, all signed MAGA. And in 2025, 2 Democratic lawmakers from Minnesota were shot in their own homes. One of them died.
To try to find a spurt of political violence like that, you have to go back to the 1960s in the United States to find anything like that. So not quite historically unprecedented, but historically high.
There's a kind of fading line, I think, that's been occurring for many years in American politics between political rhetoric and political violence.
The trend lines are really clear and entirely alarming. What we're seeing is a normalization of political violence. What we need to push back on is the idea that this is normal or inevitable, because it's not.
So the killing of Charlie Kirk in cold blood, broad daylight, in front of a crowd of thousands, it is a horrific aberration in a country where these aberrations keep repeating themselves and where a great number of things may all have contributed to making such an act of violence possible. So add Charlie Kirk's name to the list of examples now where one must ask the question, at what point does anger and rhetoric and polarization sharpen into murder?